Guys, welcome back to Post Series. Today I'm going to do a brief demo on how we can match our elements or our background plates with our original plate. We have this train image here and we're going to replace these windows. So the first things that we would want to do is we would want to match our B plate or our background plate or our element we want to match those black and white points to our plate. And there are a few ways that you can do this. One way you can do this is to add a grade node. And once we have this grade node, we will attempt to find the black point of our element or our B plate. So let's actually just call this, just so we know. Usually the second plate is either called BG, it's sometimes called element O2. I guess those are, or plate B. Those are a few names that I've seen for my secondary plates when I'm working. So we'll just keep that same idea so that we can very clearly see what we are adjusting. And then we'll call this one just our plate. Let's see, I've seen this called, actually usually just plate. Sometimes it's also called EL01. So, and I mean, some places maybe you'll even call it the foreground plate. So we'll just stick with those same names. And then we know that this is our main plate. And that's our secondary plate. So we need to find the blackest point in our secondary plate because we want to match our black points from our secondary plate to the black points of our foreground plate. So we'll call this one background. To find those black levels, we can use these viewer gain and gamma sliders. So if we wanted to see the darkest pixel, if we gain up really high, we'll see which pixels are the darkest. So with this grade node, we would just click on our color picker and let's just select one of those dark pixels. So if you hold down Control, you can select your pixel. And usually while I have mine, my view already set, I'll go ahead and view the foreground plate. And now we'll see, we want to sample something from the background since that's what we're matching to. So now we'll need to adjust the lift value. So we'll go ahead and click the color picker again, and we'll select one of these dark pixels. So now we have our blacks, and now we want to select our whites. So we can do the same thing. Let's look for something white. We have this little white house here, and if we can gamma down, and then we'll see that house back there. And let's look at our background plate. Let's see what we have. We mostly have a lot of white clouds, so let's just select. We'll select for our white point, we will go ahead and select the cloud, and I have my overlay off, so I'll just turn it on so you guys can see the pixel that I'm selecting. And then I'll go, while I have it already set, I'll go over to my foreground plate and I will again look for the whitest thing in the background, and then I will choose the color picker for my gain. And then we will select that pixel, holding down Control. And be sure to turn your color pickers off when you finish. If you want to turn off this overlay, you can just hold down Control and Shift and that will go away. So now let's take a look at what we have. Let's turn our gammas back, and then let's take a look from our merge node, and let's plug in that grade node that we just adjusted. So this is what we have already. So we see we already have something that's sitting in sitting in a little bit better to match what was originally happening in the plate. So let's take a look. So this is feeling a lot better. So again, we want the black point and the white point from our background plate or our element or our B plate. And we want the lift and the gain from our foreground plate, our element 1, or our main plate. So that's one way you can do that. Now, if we look at this background plate, you might not be able to tell, but I feel like let's turn up the saturation. Maybe we can see it a little bit better. If we just increase the saturation, sometimes if I'm trying to figure out what kind of like tint or hue or the plate has, I'll just boost up the saturation. And now we can start seeing in the background this kind of like blue. We have this like bluish tint to our background image. And if I use this same saturation node here with my my B plate, I see that this one has more of a green tint to it. So we want to match what's happening here. Even in the trees, and we have these green trees here, they're still a little bit, you can mostly see the blue tint here in these background trees, but there's still some in this foreground tree as well. So we will try to mimic that. And then let's also pay attention to one other thing. Let's look how saturated this image is. So our saturation, it's set pretty high, but let's set it. Actually, we'll just, let's change it to 2 just to see. So we'll set our saturation to 2. And now let's just look at overall how this background is feeling, how the saturation is. And now once we plug in our B plate, we see, if you guys can see already, I'm feeling like my trees are a little dull. Now, sometimes when I really want to get a better look, I'll just create a new viewer and I'll attach it to my, and let's copy this. We're going to copy this saturation, and I'll attach my new viewer to that because we want to compare. Let's compare these two. So if we click on this little icon here, we want to split our viewer horizontally because we want to put one viewer here in this second window so we can compare our image side by side. And now if you guys can see, even if we're looking at this green tree, these are feeling a little bit dull. And we have this yellow here and we have these bright yellows here. So I already know just from increasing the saturation that I'm going to want to increase the saturation on my B plate. So let's add another saturation node, and I'll just use this one to kind of bring this up until I'm feeling like it's kind of matching those same values. So even a little bit, it's feeling better. Now that's obviously too much, but this is feeling close as well. Now let's turn off the saturation that we were, and now once we turn that saturation off, we can see that maybe we did increase this saturation too much. Sometimes I like to leave this at 1 so that when I'm adjusting multiple nodes, I don't accidentally adjust the wrong one. So now let's see, let's turn this saturation off. We'll just take a look and we'll see we might have went a little too far. So let's dial it back. And I think something like this is helping it already. So it's just making it a little more vibrant, and we're starting to feel like it's matching this foreground plate a little bit better. Let's see, we could probably even break it down a little bit more. Let's try that. Let's see if we turn that off. Yeah, so this is looking good. So now that I have my saturation a little closer, I have my black and white points also closer. Like I said, we have this blue tint that we don't have here. And let's turn our saturation back on. Maybe we'll see that tint a little bit better. Okay, so we have that bluish tint. Now, sometimes what I do, I actually just create another grade node, and then in my gain, I'll turn on my color picker, and I'll just sample that blue tint that I want to mimic. So I hold down Control, and I'll just sample that blue tint. And this, we saw this drastic change happening here in my background plate, but that's fine. I'll just turn my color picker off. And now I want to turn on, I'll just click, I'm gonna bring up my color wheel. And now I'm going to start adjusting. First, of course, I want to bring this value up because my image definitely got too dark. It was somewhere around there. So you can just bring this up. And now let's turn that off. So now we have the blue tint, but let's see. We have that blue tint. And this is probably the best tree to look at, this green and then this yellow. So we have a little bit of that blue tint now. And if I wanted to adjust it even more, I could just start moving these sliders around until I feel like I have something that I like. Let's see. So I'll stick with something like that for now. Now let's turn that saturation off. This saturation that we're just using to kind of see both of our images a little bit better with the adjustments that we're dialing in. We're gonna delete those in the end. So actually, I'll just leave it for now. So let's turn these off. And here we see we have something that's already looking like it's going to fit better in with this plate. Yeah, so that's that. Now I want to show you another method. This one is using, if you didn't know, there's a node. If you hit tab and type toe, there's a toe color node. So with this particular workflow, what you can also match your black and white points using this same workflow. So let's we'll move our viewer over here so we can see. We're going to start over with this. So we're still going to compare it to our foreground, but we're just going to use a little bit of a different workflow. So first, let's turn this grade node off actually, and let's go right to our toe node. I think I might have adjusted this already. So let's create a new one, and we will just put that there. I don't want this to get too messy. I don't want you guys to get confused. So let's just keep a little bit of an order here. I'll try to delete everything that I don't need. And here we have that. And now, okay, so we have the toe, and actually for now we'll leave this here so that we can view it later. Okay, so with our toe color, we want to open up, we want to hold down Control so we can open up our color wheel again. And now with this node, the cool thing about the toe node is that you can actually add the tint right in to your image using this color wheel. So first, you do want to make sure, by default, I think you might only have your RGB pop up. So just turn on the TMI and the HSV, and we're going to be adjusting the TMI settings. So let's, so with this method, you actually kind of adjust your blacks and whites by eye. So let's see, let's just bring this up though so we can see our black points. And then actually, yeah, do we want to lift it up? It's not really making a difference. So let's just No, I think actually we should just bring it up a little bit. Okay, so now let's just start dialing this in by eye. So first we'll bring up this slider to work on our black levels. Now, if you don't notice, when we start moving this around, everything kind of gets flat in those black areas, and that's not good. So with this workflow, what you have to do so that you're not flattening out your image is you actually have to first create a grade node, and then you want to adjust the contrast of your image. So we can, if we adjust our gain a little bit, actually, let's first adjust our gamma a little bit more. And let's turn this off so you guys can see. First it's getting a little flat, but now we're still adjusting the black levels, but we're retaining some of that contrast. So I don't think we needed to go this far just yet. So let's bring it down, and then let's go ahead and start adjusting these values again here. So let's see if we want, yeah, we just want to, now we can see when we move it a little bit, we're just affecting those dark levels. Now, if you go too far, of course, you can wash out your whole image, but we don't need to go that far. So let's just say our blacks are feeling good here. Now, what we also have, I don't know, let's use this one. We have like this bluish tint to it. So let's see, can we bring some of that in? So already we can bring a little bit of that blue in. And with this particular workflow, it's a lot of back and forth. You know, you're trying to see, okay, is my contrast working? Are my grade node adjustments working with the adjustments to my toe color wheel adjustment settings? You know, so it's a lot of back and forth, which is why I personally prefer this method. Let's bring these down so we can see where we're at so far. And if we, let's bring the same saturation that we used over here, just so we can get a sense of how well these two our B plate and our A plate are looking matched together. Let's see. Now let's take a look. Actually, we want to keep that onto our B plate, so we just want to change the viewer for our A plate, and let's turn off these slight adjustments. But this we can see still though, this method still is good, and it's actually not as drastic. So you can definitely take a lot of small steps to build this up and have a little bit more control over how you want your image to fit into your foreground plate. I'm going to switch these so we can see. Actually, let's just add a switch node. I want to switch between the two adjustments that we made here so we can see. You create a switch node, and if you don't know, if you want to swap your inputs, you just hold down, you select the node, and you hit Shift and X, and that will just swap your inputs. That's on any node. So when I want to compare my images and I want to use a switch node, I just attach it, and then I just swap the inputs. And if you accidentally bring your mouse here in the viewer, it will go to the 3D view. So you have to make sure when you're hitting that, you are staying, your mouse is staying here in the node graph. So we can see the differences here, and this actually looks pretty good too. So it just depends on where you're trying to take your image and what kind of adjustments that you want to make. I actually like the values that we're getting with the toe node. I would probably go ahead and just lift my blacks a little bit more here though, and then maybe somewhere around here. And yeah, so these are two ways that you can start bringing your images together or your elements. This is how you can start integrating your elements. You want to adjust the saturation, whatever the tint is that you need to match, as well as your black and white points. So I hope this was helpful. Of course, leave comments in the comment section if you guys need any more information on this workflow, and I hope this was helpful.